This happened while I was married. I still tell the story now and get a lot of smirks and ha-ha. Yes, karma, at her best comments. So, my husband, now ex, and I were one of the last to board the plane as he had misplaced his boarding ticket and we had to search for it. When we got on, we were walking up the plane and could see our row. The plane was pretty much full and all settled in. Older couple sat in our row of 3. I checked our tickets and then asked the couple what seats they were supposed to be in as those were ours. They refused to move. They had scored 3 seats to both of them, whereas the row in front had a very slim girl at the window. The air hostess came over, and as they were older and playing the age card, the hostess asked us to sit in the seats in front. My husband argued that in the event of an accident, our names will not be on the right locations. However, the hostess said she would swap these over. So we sat down next to the slim girl who took up no room whatsoever. The couple behind were very loudly gloating at their win and discussing how they would have a very pleasant 14-hour trip home. My husband told me as soon as we could to recline the seats as he was pissed at their gloating. So, here we are, settled, when this man starts walking up the plane. He was a very, very large man, long dreadlocks, shoving a baguette in his mouth as he made his way up the aisle. My husband just looked at me and smiled as he realized the only spare seat was that window seat that would have been next to mine. And yes, karma showed its face to the gloating couples as the man asked them to move so he could get into his seat. Once settled, he took up a lot of the space, and once in the air, the lady called a hostess down and started having a strop about how we had stolen their seats and that we had refused to move when they boarded. Sadly for the lady, our argument at the start of the flight had been witnessed by the staff as everyone else was settled by then, so she was shut down by the staff who refused to move us. They had a miserable flight as the guy kept getting up for the toilet, extra drinks, and extra snacks. Whoever he was a complete gem of human being. This happened a few years ago. I moved northwest from the Bible Belt of the South 3 years ago, and my truck is a 1 GMC Southern Comfort. This truck originally belonged to my father, but when he passed, he left it to me. I, 27-year-old female, had to fix many issues with it, from lifter tick, front rack leaking exhaust fell off, and even the broken fuel pump. I fixed it up the way he wanted and took a nice road trip getting it up here. I moved to an area with an influx of individuals from California, and the Karen is one of the few that are nuts. She complained to the front desk of the apartment complex for anything and everything. She once yelled at random people in the parking lot because she wanted an eco-friendly environment and demanded we all sell our gas vehicles for Tesla. When we said we can't afford them, she screamed at more people about how she could afford hers. I don't drive the truck very often because Dad wanted to keep the mileage low and it's 2-wheel drive low rider, so it's a Sunday driver. It's been over 2 years since this happened. It was late summer, and I decided I'll take it to the car wash to clean it up a bit. Now, this truck is loud, but not obnoxious. Everyone who has owned a V8 knows a cold start in the morning can be loud, and the Flowmaster Outlaw under it doesn't help. She came out banshee screaming at me that I need to tone it down. People are sleeping. It was 9 a.m. I apologized and said, I haven't cranked it in over a week. It's going to be a little loud. It's a 5.3-liter V8. She looked at it more and smiled and asked, Can my son have it? Me, what? No, why would you ask that? Well, my son is in high school and would absolutely love it. Plus, you have multiple vehicles and you don't need more than one. Absolutely not. This truck belonged to my dad and is not for sale. If you don't give it to me, I'll tell the front desk on you. Go ahead. And then I drove off. I later got a call from the front desk that she complained and to meet them there. Me, hello, manager. How can I help you? Manager, hey, Karen here is complaining your truck is too loud. Do you have the copy of the exhaust paperwork? Yeah, I'll go get it. I grabbed it out of my center console and handed it to the manager. You see, Karen, her truck is within the legal noise ordinance limit, and even then, it's not that loud. I am sorry, Karen. You feel my truck is too loud, but it's within the legal limit and I don't drive it every day. Karen stormed off, slamming the manager's door. I shrugged my shoulders. I don't know what her problem is, but she tried to ask me to give her the truck earlier. Weird. A few days passed, and it was nice, but as I was going to go put gas in my truck, Karen once again asked for it for her son. I said no. She threatened that she would call the police on me. I said go ahead and waited by my truck for them. They came and said they got a report of a stolen vehicle. They separated us, and I told them everything. Officer, so Karen has been harassing you and demanded the truck. She claimed you took the keys from her son and pushed him. Me. Yes, officer, here are the registrations from the last several years, including the ones with my dad's name on them. If you follow me, I'll get the title that is in my name and his death certificate. We got the papers from my lockbox. Officers reviewed them together and told Karen, Ma'am, filing a false report is serious. Karen, but she stole my son's truck. No, you falsely called us and harassed her. Karen shoved the officers trying to run between them and was arrested for assaulting a police officer. Karen was evicted for throwing rocks at gas trucks in the parking lot a few months later and encouraging her 2 teen sons to jump in the beds of the trucks. She claimed they were free-range kids, yes, like chickens, and thus were above the law. She wasn't very pleasant as a neighbor. Good riddance. This is about my neighbors. So the son, he looks about 12, was running in the hallway of our apartment. He tends to do that a lot. I don't know why and I don't care. He's obnoxious. Now, to the incident. I got off the elevator and the elevator opened outwards and the kid was standing on the other side of it, very close to the door. There's a line on the floor that says caution for little kids not to go over it, and he fell. I had a lot of things in my hand, so I had to open the door with my back, and I didn't see him. He had no injuries because I didn't even hit him that hard, and he wasn't bleeding or crying or anything. It was just an accident. I apologized to him and asked if he was hurt, and he said he was fine and it was okay. I asked if he needed some ice, and he said no and kept running in the halls. Okay, it's over right. Wrong. A few hours later, his father comes knocking at my door with the son, saying I hurt the kid and now he has to be taken to the hospital. So I asked him, why is he standing at my door then if his kid needs emergency medical attention? Take him there first, then come deal with me. This man says I owe him $40,000 for ambulance and hospital bills because he has no insurance. I laughed because that is absurd and closed the door on him, and his son starts screaming and crying, and his father is banging at my door. I called out to him to go to the hospital. Show me the medical bill and I'll take a look. No way am I paying him. His kid doesn't need medical attention, and it wasn't my fault he was standing where he was. He's old enough to understand not to, but just to humor myself I said that. This happened a few years ago, so I figured it should be good to share it now. So my mother has a special sense of entitlement. She believes the world owes her anything. Everything has to only go her way. She once got upset at a baby in a restaurant for making noise and told the mother she should have left it in the car. The one person who seemed to get through her skull about her entitlement was my dad. He was a take-no-nonsense kind of man, and he would straight up tell her when she was acting like an entitled idiot, often with her complaining afterwards while he was out running errands. Well, in March of 2018, my dad passed away from stomach and liver cancer. I was torn up because I never got to say goodbye before he passed, but I had to remain strong for my family members and help plan for his funeral services. My mom called with a list of things that needed to be done before she came back with his ashes. When I told her how I felt about not being there to say goodbye, she responded, "Well, I wouldn't have allowed you to see him anyway." That somewhat confused me, but I shrugged it off, and with the help of my sister, brother, aunt, and cousins, we began to get things set up for my dad's services. One of the main concerns my sister and I shared was how much of an impact my dad's passing would have on my mom, and the thought sent a chill down my spine. When she arrived a week later with his ashes, it was like she had just gotten set free from entitlement prison. She berated and insulted us for every little thing that looked wrong to her or she didn't like. She didn't like the location that was picked. We weren't doing things fast enough. She should have a chair set up for her so people can walk over to her and give their condolences. She kept nitpicking and insulting everyone that she made a few family members walk away, saying they would be there at my dad's services, but they weren't going to be treated with such negativity in such a tragic time. I tried to be the middleman and help any way I could while also dealing with some changes in my life, was moving into a new place when the bad news hit. Of course, my mom used that as ammo to put me down and say I was being a lazy and uncaring son. I kept my mouth shut and just took it. It wasn't until the day before my dad's services that I heard enough tales from family members of how bad my mom was being, so I called a family meeting to talk and try to smooth things out. Now, I know this is a difficult time. We are all mourning and grieving. Dad wouldn't want any of us to be acting like this to one another, so let's work together and finish up what needs to be done before tomorrow, I said, hoping that would be enough for my mom to see how much of a jerk she's been. Sadly, my words fell on deaf ears as she responded, "I don't know why you all are in mourning. I was his wife, only I have the right to mourn his loss." That tore into me like nothing else before. Where did she have the gall to state that nonsense? I called her out for being selfish and disrespectful, but she played the ignorance card and kept pushing fault onto us. Things escalated between us quickly to the point that police were involved. I never looked at my mom the same after that comment. I cut ties with her a year after, and my life has a lot less drama now. I see her only in passing, and she tries to put on a better-than-you attitude every time. So, quick note. In most hospitals, if you have tested positive for COVID, there's a procedure the hospital enacts. It varies by hospital, but generally speaking, the standard procedure is to isolate the confirmed COVID patients and handle them first, barring some major traumas. I was diagnosed and confirmed, so the story begins with me arriving at the hospital ER. At the time, I had experienced some trouble breathing, shortness of breath, lots of fluid in the lungs. Basically, everything was not good. That's probably putting it mildly, I suppose, but the point stands. I quickly get ushered into the isolation area, completely skipping the line of people waiting as COVID patients, regardless of status, are considered critical. I'm laying on my bed in isolation, waiting for the doctor to see me when I notice the screech of some kind of wild animal, that animal being an entitled person. I didn't catch all what she was saying, but got the impression that she was, in her mind, more important than me. How dare they take an, obviously, to her, healthy person back first? No amount of talking and whatnot on the part of the nurses will stop her ranting and raving. Eventually, they must have told her to take a number and wait to be called because the screeching largely subsided. Around this time, the doctor sees me and gives me some kind of breathing treatment to help with the problems, though I'm still coughing. We're supposed to keep masks on us at all times, but it's kinda hard to do when every 5 minutes or so it feels like you're coughing up a lung. Even so, I've managed to relax somewhat, camping out there and letting the drugs do their work and generally just dozing. That's when I'm rather rudely awakened by the oxygen mask I'm wearing being snatched from my face and this inaudible screech of cursing and spittle flying at me. The lady has somehow breached the isolation area and is now screaming in my face about how she is more important and how dare I, a mere pleb or something, go first. She needs to be seen first, and do I even know who she is? Between her screeching at me and my pressing the nurse call button, it takes maybe a minute for doctors in the bunny suits, full hazardous response gear, to respond. They work to pull the lady off me, but not in time to prevent me from going into one of my coughing fits. She's screaming incoherently at this point, and things only escalate from there. Security gets involved, and ultimately she does get what she wants. Seen. Granted, she ended up being restrained to the bed, and it took a doctor practically yelling at her that she was now exposed to COVID. This didn't sit well with her. She started blubbering and crying that she was now going to die, and it was all my fault. That didn't fly long, though, the crocodile tears drying up pretty quickly while the doctor informed her in no uncertain terms. They had video of her breaching the isolation room, and that she had taken it upon herself to approach a patient without any form of protection. I ended up having to stay overnight, and she got to enjoy the test where they stick a swab all the way into your sinus cavity for testing, and a night at the hospital while the tests came back. I have to wonder, in all honesty, if it was worth it. I mean, she'd come there for something minor, and now she gets to suffer with the rest of us, plebs who caught the virus. I'm in the isolation period now, with maybe a week to go before I'm clear. Ended up with some permanent lung damage from my own ordeal, and a story of someone whose own entitlement got her in some really hot water.